Madam Presiding Member, I make that 10 o'clock.
Thank you very much. I'm just checking I've got all the members that I can see on screen. Thank you. Bore da, croeso, good morning. I'd like to welcome everyone to this hybrid meeting of Council. This Council meeting is being broadcast live over the internet and will be available to be viewed online now and in the future. We welcome the use of Welsh language at meetings, and I've had no request for people to speak Welsh today, so this meeting will be conducted in English only. Members in the Chamber, please be aware that we are all on camera, and you will be visible on screen when people around you are speaking, and please remember to speak clearly into your microphones. Members participating remotely, can you please refrain from using the chat function and instead use the raised hand icon to indicate when you want to speak. Please remember to keep your microphones muted when you're not talking. May I remind members that as per the statutory guidance made under Section 4 of the Local Government Wales Measure 2011 and our formally adopted hybrid meeting policy, any member attending the meeting remotely today must be able to be seen and heard by members and officers who are attending the meeting, as well as by members of the public viewing the meeting. So can I ask and reiterate that you all please use your cameras for the duration of the meeting. Moving on to the agenda. Agenda item 1, attendance. Democratic Services will be making a note of members' attendance in the meeting, but should you lose connection, could you possibly leave a comment in the chat bar on your return to ensure that this is picked up? Agenda item 2, apologies for absence. Rachel, do we have any apologies, please?
Yes, I've received apologies from Councillors Ron Burnett, Janet Jones, Alan Slade and Nathan Yall.
Thank you. Agenda item 3, which is the declarations of interest. Derek Harris, the Monitoring Officer and Assistant Chief Legal Officer. Have you any advice for members, please?
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. With regard to agenda item number 13, which is the Gwent Regional Partnership Board Annual Report, both Councillor Rose Seaborn and Councillor David Williams have a personal interest in that they both sit on the Gwent Public Service Board Scrutiny Committee. Could I ask both councillors to confirm that interest, please?
Yes, indeed.
I confirm.
Thank you. And also with regard to the same agenda item, Councillor David Williams has a personal interest as Chair of the TVA. Could I ask Councillor Williams to declare that interest?
Yes, indeed.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. With regard to agenda item number 10, which is the Sustainable Communities for Learning Strategic Outline Programme, that makes reference to a number of schools. So my advice is that you don't need to make a declaration at this point in the meeting, but if you ask a question or enter into a debate about a specific school, you can consider whether you have an interest to declare at that time. Thank you, Presiding Member. I'm not aware of any other interests.
Thank you, Darragh. Were there any other declarations? Councillor Dave Daniels?
I'm just checking whether I've got an interest because I'm Deputy Chair of the RPB Regional Partnership Board. I'm LA appointed, but just checking whether it's an interest.
You can make that as a personal interest if you wish. Thank you.
Any other declarations of interest? Any online? No. Thank you very much. Thank you for that, Darragh. That takes us to agenda item 4, confirmation of the Council minutes, dated the 19th of the 11th, 2024, and they start on page 5 of your agenda. Members, could you possibly state whether you have anything to raise in relation to the minutes? If not, I will take them as approved. Thank you. I take those as approved. Agenda item 5, update on actions. Members, the updates on what has been done to implement our previous decisions start on page 57 of the agenda. Could you possibly indicate whether you have any questions or comments? Can I ask members whether they agree to note the update on actions then, please? All those in favour? Anyone against? Any abstentions? Are they noted? Thank you. Agenda item 6, receipt of petitions. There are no petitions today. So we move on to agenda item 7, which is the public question time. There are no public questions. Moving on. Agenda item 8, announcements from the leader, and followed by the Chief Exec. Councillor Hunt, please, the leader. Do you have any announcements?
Thank you, Presiding Member. First of all, I want to say a big thank you to everyone running or helping with Christmas events across our communities this month, including councillors in this room. For example, Father and Mother Christmas, raising money for CoStar and spreading Christmas joy. And I even spotted a familiar Christmas cracker out and about in Pontypool. So thank you to everyone involved in those events. Secondly, there's a short film for us to play this morning, which I think is important, because as we look back on 2024, as councillors we're always pushing for improvements and positive change, so it's often easy to overlook the achievements of our staff over the year and how they're delivering and working hard to deliver on our priorities. I want to say a big thank you to our workforce for delivering on our objectives, often in very challenging environments. Using our county plan and the Marmot principles as our compass, the council is on the front line of improving lives of our residents, and we're making a real difference day in, day out in our communities. In Torvine, we face a significant challenge to reverse the stark health inequalities that exist within our communities. At a time of rising demand and high public expectations, which makes the decision on how we use our resources even more critical. But we're trying to embrace this challenge and do things differently in Torvine to ensure our resources are targeted to where they can have the greatest impact on lives. Our mission is to help improve the lives of our residents, so here are just a few of examples from around our services of how our staff have been delivering on that in 2024. As we look back on 2024, it's often easy to overlook the achievements of the past year and on how we're delivering on our priorities. I want to say a big thank you to our workforce for delivering on our objectives, often in very challenging circumstances. Our mission is to help improve and transform the lives of our residents, and here are just some examples from around the services of how we've been achieving this in 2024. Our Wellbeing Objective 1 is to raise educational attainment and improve skills. We've had an excellent Essendon inspection this year, with inspectors highlighting improvements in leadership, evaluation, accountability and performance across the council. Critically, our Not In, Miss Out campaign has seen school attendance achieve the biggest improvement in Wales, up from 17th to 3rd. The Inspire service is providing training in the cafe and working with community schemes like Changing Gears and on allotments to help our young people who have struggled to engage with mainstream school or services. Our second wellbeing objective is supporting children, young people and families so they can thrive. Torvine's inclusive play provision continues to be the envy of Wales and possibly the UK. Over 3,000 children registered and 260 children with additional needs access play over the summer through the dedication of over 430 workers and volunteers. And our play provision just keeps getting better and better. And this year we've opened additional specialist play facilities in the Civic Centre. We've also opened an inspiring autism, ALN and community facility at Cwmbran High. Construction is nearly complete on the new school at Maindy Primary, and we've also extended facilities at Crownbridge School. Plus, we've opened a new residential home for our children looked after, which replicates family life and meets the needs of children and young people with complex needs. It also works towards meeting Welsh Government's not-for-profit agenda and ensures that children and young people can live within their community. This year we've established a youth forum and a youth alliance representing the voices of our young people. We also held our first pupil takeover days, which saw pupils take control of the council for a day. And we're also doing pioneering work with our Gypsy Traveller children via their forum. At the end of the last academic year, all Gypsy Traveller pupils in education in Torvine left with a qualification. Our third wellbeing objective is to tackle inequality by focusing on supporting people to live independent and fulfilling lives. A big emphasis for us is tackling inequalities that exist in our communities. During 2024, there's been some great examples of the work of the Community Connectors and other offices, members and partners supporting local groups to thrive, including the Therapeutic Art Club and older people's groups. We've increased funding for our communities groups through our Community Resilience Fund. We've passed 1,000 people signed up to the Connect network to find community events and volunteering opportunities. There are around 400 community listings on the site every month, making it Torvine's one-stop shop for local activities and events. For delayed discharges of care, Torvine is among the best performers in Wales, with increasing recognition of the impact of our community strategy. Our shared revenues and benefits service continues to be held up by Welsh Government as a best practice example for helping people in need. And recently, we've completed the construction of Pearl House, working with Melian Homes to turn it into 15 units of vital homeless accommodation. These all add up to make a real impact on people's quality of life and reduce the long-term demand on services. Our fourth wellbeing objective is to make Torvine more sustainable by connecting people and communities. I've been hugely frustrated by the long overdue opening of the extended Pontypool and New Inn train station. I know progress has been held up, but our staff have displayed considerable fortitude and professionalism, dealing with an exceptionally challenging situation and protecting the council from financial risk. I look forward to the station opening in early 2025. However, the good news is that more primary school pupils than ever are walking, cycling or scooting to school, and Torvine now has the fourth highest percentage of pupils who travel actively to school. This is both good for their health and for the environment. Our fifth wellbeing objective is to recycle more and make improvements to our local environment. We're working to raise the rate, going from 58% to over 65% recycling, and we've rolled out the weekly card collections and the new red recycling bag, which will make the curbside collections easier for crews and reduce recycling contamination. A new trade waste service was also delivered successfully in 2024. We've opened our 8th and largest local nature reserve at Blaen Sucken, which will enhance biodiversity and help remove carbon from the atmosphere. And we've seen improvements in cemetery maintenance and information arising from public engagement, which will be a comfort for bereaved families. Our sixth wellbeing objective is to make Torvine a great place to do business. By working with local employers, encouraging new business startups and entrepreneurial activities. We're getting good feedback from businesses on the work of the Economy and Enterprise team and the Business Direct service, which is close to responding to 1,000 inquiries this year already. And we've made fresh investment into the Springboard Innovation Centre. This year we've also supported local businesses with setting up websites and deliver training to inspiring entrepreneurs. Our seventh wellbeing objective is to support and promote healthier lifestyles in Torvine to improve physical and mental well-being. A new 3G pitch is already in use by pupils and clubs in Trefethin, and work has started on more top-class floodlit pitches in Abersucken and Antarnan. Plus there's new play courts in Blenavon, suitable for tennis, basketball and netball. This again followed feedback from the public. Making Torvine a great place to live, work or visit is our eighth objective. Work is well underway on a regional visitor attraction at Green Meadow Farm, which is due to open in 2025, as just part of our plans for Destination Torvine to bring more visitors to the borough. And recently, our Street Food Saturdays have become a real draw for our community, bringing people together over great food and drawing impressive crowds into Pontypool. Our final objective is to improve customer services to provide a better service to members of the public. This year we secured significant investment to improve facilities in Cumbrian Library. Libraries remain vital hubs for lifelong learning, public engagement and personal growth. These renovations provide more opportunities for agile working and study, a new teenage library and areas for health and wellbeing information and advice. And lastly, in meeting our own characteristics for an outstanding council, we've launched a new recruitment portal to attract more talent. We've delivered a successful PCC election, followed by a snap general election. This is a real team effort and thank you to all the staff involved. And I must thank staff for their excellent response to Storm Bert, working in treacherous conditions to protect homes and the public. And finally, our journey to closer collaboration with Blaen y Gwent is a model being praised and followed closely by unions, Welsh Government, neighbouring councils and outside bodies. Even with an extended role, I must praise Stephen, our Chief Executive, for his insatiable focus on performance and his ambition to improve lives and reduce health inequalities in Torvine. So I'd like to wish you all a very Merry Christmas and here's to a successful 2025.
Do you have any other report?
Just so as we prepare for 2025, my hopes we continue along our journey to achieving our wellbeing objectives with as much pace, passion and determination as staff have in 2024. After all, we're doing this for our families, our friends, our children and the future. And there's much, much more we haven't been able to touch on, and I must thank all councillors for making a difference in your communities. I know it's not an easy job, and a vast amount of work goes unseen. So to all our staff, councillors, volunteers and residents, issues may sometimes be complex to resolve. There are things that frustrate us, things we'd love to do but can't, and things that don't always go to plan. But please be proud of your achievements for our communities. Have a very Merry Christmas, and here's to a successful 2025, where pushing forward with that work will be more important than ever.
Thank you very much, Leader. Chief Executive, do you have any announcements, please?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Presiding Member. If I can just also take a moment to reflect on the collective achievements across Torvine and express a heartfelt gratitude to everyone involved. To our dedicated staff, your hard work, commitment and unwavering dedication have been the backbone of our success. Your efforts have not gone unnoticed, and I'm incredibly proud of what we have accomplished together. And thank you for your resilience, your professionalism, and the passion you bring to your roles every day. To our esteemed councillors, your leadership, vision, tireless advocacy for our community have been instrumental in guiding us through both challenges and triumphs this year. Your commitment to serving our residents with integrity and dedication is truly commendable, and thank you for your continued support and for your guidance for us in making a positive impact on our community. And to our vibrant communities, your engagement, support and active participation have been vital in shaping this local authority into a thriving and inclusive place. Your contributions, whether big or small, have made a significant difference. Thank you for your trust, your collaboration and for being an integral part of our journey. 2025 will continue to build on our successes, embrace new opportunities and work together to create an even brighter future for our community. I'm confident that with your continued support and dedication we'll achieve even greater heights. I'd like to wish you all a joyful holiday season and a prosperous new year.
Thank you, Chief Executive. I'm sure that's echoed throughout the Chamber, both comments. That takes us to agenda item 9, which is the Torvine Council Strategic Equality Plan Annual Report 23-24. This starts on page 59 of the agenda. Can I ask Councillor Peter Jones, the Executive Member for Corporate Governance and Resources, to introduce the report, please?
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Member. I present today the final annual report within the lifespan of Torvine Council's Strategic Equality Plan for 2020 to 2024. The statutory duty is for the report to receive sign-off at full council and to be published by the 31st of March 2025. The annual report covers activities that took place between the 1st of April 2023 and the 31st of March 2024, relating specifically to the Strategic Equality Plan's objectives and actions. The report has been collated by the Equalities Partnership and Policy Officer, who's going to speak in a moment, but it documents work that has been conducted by officers from across the organisation. Tackling inequality requires a joint commitment and effort from all of us, and we see the evidence of this commitment throughout this report, and we saw the evidence when Anthony presented the video just now. Members will recall that in February this Council approved a new strategic equality plan that came into effect on the 1st of April. Just to reiterate, the annual report documents the previous year. However, for members' awareness and assurance, we have also provided the updated action plan for work going forward for your information. We are not seeking a discussion on this additional document today, but by all means, please get in touch if there are any comments or questions. In a moment, I will hand over to Stephen Honeywell, who will provide a brief overview of the annual report before we seek Council's agreement to the recommendations to approve and publish the report. Before I hand back to the presiding member, I'd just like to acknowledge all the hard work Stephen has done in getting these reports ready for Council. I will now hand back to the presiding member.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Can I ask Stephen Honeywell to report, please?
Yes, thank you, Presiding Member. Thank you, Councillor Jones, and good morning, members. I don't want to take up too much of your time today, but as is customary, I will just run through a few of the report's highlights before handing back to the Presiding Member to seek the approval for publication. And it was, as we've already seen from the leader's video, a very busy year. Staff training opportunities on equality, diversity and inclusion topics have been increased with the arrival of the ThinkE e-learning platform, which currently offers 8 e-learning modules on these topics, with more to be added. Torvine anti-bullying guidance and policy for education settings is being reviewed and updating, and the dialogue between schools and the local authority is improved, with the number of confirmed incidents of bullying and harassment being more aligned to national data and statistics. We have begun to take steps to play our part in meeting the objectives of the Anti-Racist Wales Action Plan. No boundaries provided anti-racism training to both elected members and the Council's leadership team, and we have committed to developing an anti-racism plan for schools. Windrush was celebrated with an exhibition that was toured around the council buildings for several weeks. The West Gwent Communication team continued to promote, deliver and fund many activities to champion inclusion and encourage a culture of empathy and fairness, including within schools and on social media. As part of the Homes for Ukraine accommodation framework, Torvine supported Welsh Government to relocate Ukrainians who arrived via the Super Sponsor scheme into local authority areas, and the closure of all welcome centres across Wales highlights the coordinated efforts. We have carried out numerous actions to ensure that there are no barriers to accessing services and buildings. Examples of such work include ramps, lifts, wider doors, doors with access controls, new accessible toilets, vision sensory colour scheme improvements, maintenance of accessible toilets and remarking of accessible car spaces attached to buildings, all compliant with best practice guidance and Part M of the building regulations. A range of active travel improvements have been made, taking into account people with disabilities, with the active travel officer having regular engagement with Torvine Access Forum. In 2023-24, the financial inclusion team raised or saved their clients over £125,000 via benefit claims, grant applications and reducing outgoings such as non-priority debts and non-priority bills, and the team prevented 38 cases from becoming homeless. The Home Seeker team continued to work closely with occupational therapists and social care to ensure the needs of Torvine residents are appropriately assessed to understand their needs. 93% of the 348 applicants on the register for people with an assessed need for adapted or accessible accommodation have either been assessed by an occupational therapist or are awaiting an assessment following referral, which is an increase from 86% at the same point last year. An astonishing 4,305 people became Dementia Friends during the year, and the Dementia Friends network now has over 300 members. Work began to set up dementia hubs across Gwent, and the Torvine Hub will provide enhanced support regarding information, advice and assistance for those receiving a dementia diagnosis. And vitally, a new strategic equality plan for 2024 to 28 was developed and published, focusing on the evidence base of the HRC's Wales Fairer report, Welsh Government's Anti-Racist Wales Action Plan and LGBTQ+ Action Plan, significant public consultation, input from our local forums, and not least the learning and observations of officers in the Cross-Cutting Scrutiny Committee. And I'm confident that this document will guide us well in our efforts to make further progress in tackling inequalities over the next 4 years. As Councillor Jones mentioned, the latest action plan for the new equalities objectives is also provided today for your information. This will remain a living document in terms of being reviewed each year and members being cited annually to ensure that actions are progressed and updated as we gain new knowledge and respond to new evidence and data. Actions are embedded in service plans to ensure good governance, and I'll end with my annual thank you to members for the vital role that you play, not only in scrutinising reports and impact assessments and challenging where necessary, but also for your efforts throughout the year in bringing any unfairness experienced by residents to the attention of myself or other officers so that we can act. Thank you for taking some time to review the report. I will pass back to the presiding member for any questions and to seek approval.
Thank you, Stephen. Any questions from members? Councillor David Williams.
It's more of an observation, really. I just was very impressed with the level of detail and the breadth of the plan. Looking, for example, at page 121, when you're talking about gates and access to public spaces, you know, that obviously is really important to many of our citizens to be able to get out there, whether they're old, young, or maybe a disability need. And then also the things around the resettling people successfully, you know, so I thought the breadth was excellent. It's picked up very much a cross-section of what we did. You know, we had the Youth Alliance mentioned, for example, as well as older people, so I thought it was a very good forward plan. So thank you very much.
Thank you for that feedback.
Thank you, Councillor David Williams. I don't see any further hands. Can I take you to the recommendations, which are on page 62 of the report? I ask members whether they agree with the recommendations. Anyone against the recommendations? Any abstentions? That report is carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Councillor Jones. Takes us to agenda item 10, which is the Sustainable Communities for Learning Strategic Outline Programme, page 127 of your agenda. And John Tushingham, Head of Resource and Planning, could you deliver this report for us, please?
Thank you, Presiding Member, and good morning, members. The Strategic Outline Programme that you've got in front of you today sets out our next phase of strategic planning for investment in school infrastructure beyond this current year. The first programme was introduced in 2010-2011. The second iteration was in 2017, so this is the third time that we've looked at what we need to do. And it's important, I think, to understand the context against where we're going as to where we've been. And as a result of your commitment, support, and I have to say funding over recent years, I think the Council has got a good track record, and you should be proud of the investments that have already been made and some of the very difficult decisions that you've had to take along the way. In Band A, between 2014 and 2019, you invested £91 million in partnership with the Welsh Government in school premises. That involved a number of different schemes, building new schools, 3 primary schools, 1 secondary school. It included a number of remodelling exercises. It included, significantly, a decision to focus sixth form education with Coleg Gwent at the Learning Zone in Cwmbran. And you took the very hard decisions about removing surplus places. So we can't forget that we had to close a number of schools because we had a lot of surplus places when we started out. And that helped as well because that generated some much needed capital receipts. 2019 to 2014 has also seen some significant work, and some of that you saw on the video earlier. Maindy School is well advanced and will be occupied by the children of Maindy School in Whitsun of next year. Cranbridge has already been handed across to the school. Total on those 2 schemes alone, about £30 million. We weren't able to advance, as part of Band B, the 2 schemes for Ysgol Brynonan and Ysgol Gymraeg Cwmbran, and that was a function of the escalation in costs that I was going to say the country, but I think the world saw following COVID. So as we look forward, the objectives of the Sustainable Communities for Learning hasn't changed. We're still talking about transforming learning environments. We're still talking about making sure we can meet demand across the various forms of education. We're talking about condition and suitability, and increasingly with Welsh Government we're talking about sustainability and things like net zero carbon. So if I take you to the details of what's proposed next, the strategy going forward, we think that we need to honour the commitments that were made to the 2 Welsh medium primary schools and focus on their refurbishment first, the ones that were deferred from Band B. But then we get into a number of schemes, mostly refurbishment, 3 secondary schools, West Monmouth, Aberystwyth and Cwmbran High, 4 primary schools, Lannerhaven, Pontnewydd, Coed Ivor and Crossy Caerliog. I have to say that since 2010, 2011 and even 2017, we've accelerated the work proposed for some of the secondary schools purely on the basis that the condition there has deteriorated more rapidly than in the primary schools. We have a commitment around Welsh medium expansion to link with Welsh Government's Cymraeg 2050 proposals, and we need to monitor that closely towards the end of this current decade. We know, and I think members are probably aware of the behavioural issues in schools, some of which were exacerbated by COVID, some of which predated COVID. We've got a very good provision for secondary pupil referral, but not for primary, and that's an area that we think we need to expand into. And of course, the Archdiocese will have proposals for their schools, and we need to continue to work closely with them particularly at the moment, proposals that the Roman Catholic Archdiocese would like to see advanced for St Albans. So, in total, we're talking about £140 million investment on top of the investment that's already been made. A significant amount of money for quite a small council, and a council that has used a lot of its resources in the early stages, particularly around land availability and sale. So just in terms of where we're going to go to pace, funding is clearly an issue that we need to try to continue to move forward on. We can start with Ysgol Gymraeg Cymraeg in the new year, but others we will need to do some more work on. We need to talk to the Archdiocese and see how they intend to develop their schemes. Critically, we work with the teams in the planning service who are working on the revised local development plan, because what happens in the revised local development plan impacts on education provision in terms of the needs that those new houses bring. And they can also help with funding. So I think at that point I'll probably leave the report there, Presiding Member, and open it to questions if that's what you'd like.
Thank you, John. Councillor Richard Clark.
Not a question, just to follow on John's reflection of the report, which is very hard to do because he virtually set out everything that I would have liked to have said in that. I think it does show that we have got the strategic approach. It's not just willy-nilly and crises to crises. I speak to my colleagues who are in a similar position throughout Wales, and the schools that they're responsible for are, I would say, a lot worse condition, but they didn't make those tough decisions that this council made years ago. And I think it's only right and proper that this report shows our previous investment, over 121 million, in collaboration with the Welsh Government. It wasn't solely our money, but it shows that we've got a record of doing this. So I'm very optimistic in the future with what is outlined in the strategic document in front of you, that caveated with finance, we can deliver it. We're in the examples of the past. We will deliver the 140 million. Please don't come back to me in 3 years' time saying, well, you said it would be 140 million in total. As John outlined, costs do go up. So this is as of today. I think it's a fair reflection of the needs within the school and what we need to do. Moving forward, we present this, as it says in the report, to the Welsh Government, and then we will have to do individual business cases for the individual schools to progress them and continue our successful work in renewing and refurbishing our school estate. I would like to pay particular thanks to the Education and Overview Scrutiny Committee, because they've actually pre-seen this report, if there is such a word as pre-seen, this report, and are continually going out and seeing at the chalk face, if it's no longer a whiteboard face, at the chalk face what's going on in the schools and the conditions of the schools, and they've contributed to modifications in this report. So, subject to your questions and observations, I recommend this report to you, and then it goes forward to the Welsh Government. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Councillor Thomas.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I'd just like to know, in view of the announcements from Welsh Government about extra funding for schools, capital receipts, etc., I wondered whether we'd had any information coming forward on that, please.
Not at the moment, no. We've had some helpful information and news about further funding for capital maintenance, which was announced just last week, but not on the longer-term strategic approach. We're hopeful that that will change, though, and we'll hear something in the new year.
Thank you very much. Councillor, did you want to come in?
Happy to come in on that, to respond to Councillor Thomas's point.
yeah, that's very much a work in progress, and we will continue to talk to Welsh Government about both capital, quantum and intervention rates as well, and how we can try and work with them on those to try and unlock as many schemes as we can. More generally on the report, I think it's a case of, with our schools, a lot to do. And for me, this sort of paper is about getting the right balance between ambition, but also realism and practicality. We don't want to sell a full stream, but neither do we want to not have enough ambition. So as soon as we get the capital funding that we want, we've got a pretty clear plan there about how we want to deploy that to try and get the best possible condition for all of our schools going forwards.
Any other questions, comments? Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Madam Presiding
Williams,
Officer. It's a comment rather than a question. I think it was really, I found it very pleasing to see the fact that the PRU provision is now being extended to primary school children, because that's been a much observed need. So thank you for that. And I think it's a very good overarching report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lucy Williams. Councillor David Williams.
Yes, I'd echo that. I think it makes a lot of sense to have the overall strategic vision that sort of looks at the whole rather than looking at just things individually. But it is reassuring for those of us who are governors on certain primary schools to see that they're still in the plan and where they fit. And I think the prioritisation makes an awful lot of sense. So I would be fully supportive of this report.
Thank you very much. Any further comments? The recommendations are on page 134 of the report. Can I ask members whether they agree with the recommendations? Anybody against the recommendations? Any abstentions? That report is carried. Thank you very much. Takes us to agenda item 11, the county plan deliver plan. Oh, that's a mouthful. 2024-25 mid-year update on page 181 of your agenda. Councillor Peter Jones, Executive Member Corporate Governance and Resources. Could you introduce this report, please?
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. Before I begin my introduction, I must record my thanks to Tom, Leanne Skellett and Catherine Joseph and all the officers involved in developing the report, which I'm sure you'll appreciate is a significant piece of work. Members will be aware that Council adopted a county plan for 2022-27 for Torfaen in December 2022. As part of the Council's arrangements for meeting aspirations of the Council's new plan, the Council has committed to produce an annual delivery plan throughout its 5-year lifespan, and that this plan is reported twice a year into full Council. Our annual delivery plan sets out to members, staff and the public the work that is planned for each financial year in order to meet the Council's ambitions. The annual delivery plan continues to be monitored each quarter, ensuring expected progress is being tracked and delivered. 2024-25 is our third annual delivery plan, and as such, this report represents both the mid-year report and the midpoint throughout the 5-year plan. With the adoption of a longer-term master plan working towards the Marmot principles, it is important not to forget that each single-year delivery plan is part of a longer-term endeavour. As Tom will present shortly, the vast majority of the delivery plan is on target or has been successfully completed, and I am immensely proud of the services and officers from across the Council who continue to deliver for the citizens of Torfaen. Where we aren't meeting expectations, I want to give all members the reassurance about targets we currently judge to be amber or red. The message here is that services are continually reviewing progress and that we are very carefully and regularly monitoring our performance through the Council's executive team and PDF. Red or amber does not mean we are not going to deliver. We are going to deliver, but for assorted reasons it might not be as quick as we originally thought. Our targets are meant to be challenging, and if you monitor properly, you sometimes must adjust to ensure you achieve the outcomes you desire. As always, Cabinet colleagues and the senior leadership team are here to answer any questions that members wish to raise. But before we go into the questions, I know that Tom wants to provide a short overview of the current performance, and at this point I would like to hand back to the presiding member. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Can I ask Tom to bring the report to us, please?
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member, and good morning, members. I just want to very quickly follow up on the introduction from Councillor Jones. As you can see, an overview of actual performance is set out under paragraphs 4.3 and 4.4 of the report, with far more detail provided in Appendix 1. As you can see within the report, our mid-year update sets out an overall positive picture. Out of the 148 activities and milestones set out in the delivery plan, approximately 68%, which is 100 activities or measures of the plan, is either on target, which is green, or complete, blue. 20% or 29 activities, we are experiencing some difficulties, and these are the ambers. 5% or 8 activities have more significant concerns, the reds, and then 7% or 10 are not yet due to start, and these are classified as grey. There's been no new aborted activities in Q2, and one was aborted in Q1, and that's classified as black. As the report highlights, although there are some specific concerns with projects, good progress continues to be made across all our priority areas aimed at improving the well-being of residents and the sustainability of Torvine. I'm not going to reiterate what's already been said earlier in the council meeting, but as you've already heard, those improvements have been wide and varied, covering every service area and each part of Torvine. As has been the case previously, each RAG rating is supported by explanatory narrative, providing additional context. I hope this will ensure you as members are better informed across a vast array of council activity. We continue to try and develop and improve the report, and in this latest iteration, we are focused on providing greater explanation and data, particularly in support of those activities we are reporting as red or amber. At that point, I'll hand back to the Chair, and as Councillor Jones has already said, I'm joined by Council's executive team who will be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Tom. Are there any questions for the report, or to Tom or Councillor Jones? Councillor David Williams.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. And again, very comprehensive report, wide range of things. And it's very positive to see the progress that's been made. Just a couple of questions, if I may. It's really just seeking a little bit of detail. I think the first one is at the page 223, we looked after children. I just wondered whether we were confident we had the capacity, because in the previous quarter it mentioned some limited capacity or impact on capacity. So that's my first question. In relation to that, would it be helpful if I go through all points first, Madam Presiding Member? Yeah. The second one is, it was a more general observation. So on page 238 around community halls, page 249 about libraries, to a fair extent that's really in the hands of the public, less so ourselves. So I just wonder whether perhaps we not to be too harsh on ourselves in some of our targets, because it's probably the quality of the intervention and the opportunity as is as important as the quantity. So it's an observation as much as anything else. And finally, on 285 around the volunteer programme Read to Me, that again is rather dependent on volunteers, and I guess it's about how we perhaps trying to pick up our volunteer profile and perhaps that opportunity, which you might expect me to say, to work with the likes of TVA to help with some of that in terms of volunteer recruitment. So those are my points, Madam Presiding Member.
Thank you very much, Councillor Williams. Any other further comments? Thank you, Tom. I ask members whether or not they... Oh, sorry. Oh.
Thank you, Madam President. Member, just to answer the query, I guess, Councillor Williams, in terms of the capacity within the looked after children reduction strategy, we've seen a bit of a period of stagnation there with our overall reduction. That's been impacted on by a number of areas. One of those areas, although not isolated, is the number of unaccompanied asylum-seeking children that we have coming into the system, which is totally out of our control. However, what we do recognise is we need to impact to a greater level upon our looked after children population, still being the highest within the country, which clearly we don't want to be at that position. As a result of that, and as has been reported on within Cabinet reports fairly recently, we've recently developed an accelerated improvement group to focus upon the redesign within children's services, within children's social care, to increase that capacity and to correspond with our community offer and our preventative functions to prevent children from coming in. What I would say is that within the last month or the last quarter, in fact, we've seen a shift, a more positive shift within our looked after population, where we're starting to see a decrease again. And through the work we're doing through the Accelerated Improvement Group, we hope we're able to sustain that. We're looking at this as well, not just in terms of a short-term measure and an immediate impact upon our looked after children population, but a more longer-term strategy as well, so that we're able to impact on that, not just within the next couple of months, but over the next couple of years.
Thank you. Jason, Councillor Ashley-Best.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. It's just a quick question. I've noticed there's positive improvement in reducing the call abandonment rate for adult social care and blue badges.
The horse race, I think it's Jehovah's Witnesses by the sound of it.
What?
Sounds like Jehovah. Sorry.
But progress is still a bit stagnant in some other departments. Is there a best practice from those which are green in their targets that those which are red can learn from?
David?
I can come back on that. Thank you, Councillor Best. There's two separate elements for us here. One is around the broader performance in general, and that's tracking roughly where it was last year. The reason that it's showing as red across a lot of the customer care metrics is that we set more ambitious targets. We know that that position will improve in Q3 and Q4. It tends to go on a sort of upward curve into Q2 as we get into some of the billing periods and then drop off towards the end of the year. So we know that that curve will change, but we're broadly tracking last year. The abandoned call rates within adult social care, part of the good practice there is around the prioritisation that we put on different calls. So we're purposely prioritising those calls that are coming in into critical areas, and then we're doing more work around those ones that are more information giving. So some of the metrics and the systems that we use to route calls prioritises it against those areas that are high demand. That's probably why we're seeing that improvement in social care, but not necessarily the same in some other functions.
Thank you. Councillor Colette Thomas?
You, Presiding Officer, can I ask about ensure qualified social workers worker caseloads on page 220? It says behind delayed there. Could we have a report on that, please?
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. I think, as we've said in previous instances, in terms of caseload numbers, they're a little arbitrary in terms of figure setting, because there can be levels of different complexity. We do monitor the actual numbers on a monthly basis. It's encouraging that we aren't just in terms of numbers alone, we are seeing a more positive shift in terms of caseload capacity, albeit we're behind in terms of where we would want that to be. It's an issue that we continue to monitor and that we can report on. I think particularly in line with some of the discussion or some of the answer I gave to Councillor Williams just now in terms of some of the service redesign within children's services, that will give us a greater, I think, not just a greater ability to measure the actual number of children within the system, but to measure the level of complexity to make sure that we have the right staff working with the right amount of children. So it could be, for example, that a caseload of 20 or a caseload of 25 may be wholly appropriate if there's a low level of complexity associated with that 25, whereas a case level of 5 may be appropriate if there's a level of high complexity. So as we go forward, I think within our redesign there within children's services, we report on that, I think, in more of a meaningful way.
I don't see any further hands. I'll take you to the recommendations that are on page 185 of the report. Sir? Oh, Councillor Stewart-Ashley?
Yeah, sorry, I'm having trouble with my hands going up and microphones opening, if you have heard anything. Sorry about that. Yeah, I really like the traffic system on here. I just make that comment because certainly when we come to scrutiny, it makes life a lot easier. And county plan is a lot better than what we had before. I make that comment. How responsive are the leadership team to things that come up? Obviously, reds are things you notice, but there's a subtlety when you've got amber and other things. I mean, obviously, global climate change is a thing I'm interested in, but you seem to be responding to that quite well. How do you use the subtlety in the system to respond to what you might think are pressures, please? I'd be interested in that. As a reporting tool, I'm fascinated with this bit.
I can certainly answer from my perspective, Councillor.
Dave, that'd be interesting, yeah.
And colleagues may come in themselves as well. We monitor it very robustly, so what we don't do is we don't just look at the REDs as management teams and as leadership team. We'll go through all of the activities, including a level of challenge on those that are green, because what we need to make sure is that we're not saying because it's green we can take our eyes off the ball with that one and don't need to keep an eye on it at all. And we know that there's many in there that are green that we do need to keep an eye on. So projects are monitored through those programme management office arrangements that we have in place. Performance is monitored within adults and communities at our management team, and then the corporate structures around the leadership team kick in for us to have discussions on any issues that need to be escalated. So just to give you that reassurance, and like I say, other colleagues may want to come in, we don't just look at the RADs, we go through all of those elements of the county plan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Councillor Ashton. Just to give you some assurance from myself and my team and the work that Kath and Leanne do is, we work across the whole of the council. Obviously, this report is derived from updates provided by officers from across the council, and part of our role is to make sure there is a balanced and fair picture. Obviously, it's in some people's personalities to be more positive, some people to be more negative, and we'll work to make sure that across the whole of the report it's as fair and balanced as possible, so that it gives a fair reflection of performance and enables executive team, leadership team and cabinet members to focus in on those areas where we think that the greatest concerns are.
Madam Presiding Officer, I thank them for that answer, because it's certainly been useful in scrutiny, and I'm sure you might reflect that, where we've had useful data input, and this is helping.
Thank you, Councillor Ashley. Peter Jones.
Just to reassure you, Councillor Ashley, from a political dimension, Cabinet are constantly reviewing this county plan. We regularly see it at the Performance Development Forum, and we challenge. And it's not just the red we look at the thing in the whole. So I'd just like to give you that reassurance.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you for that. Both, I don't see any further hands up. The recommendations are on page 185 of the report. Can I ask members whether they agree with the recommendations, please? Anyone against the recommendations? Any abstentions? Thank you. That report is carried. Takes us to agenda item 12, which is the annual report to Council on the effectiveness of social services by the Strategic Director, Children and Family Services, and the Strategic Director of Social Services, and the report starts on page 301. Jason O'Brien, Strategic Director, Children and Family Services, could you deliver this report, please?
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. Good morning, members. I think this agenda item segues nicely in from the last agenda item. Under the requirements of the Social Services and Wellbeing Act, and within the statutory functions of the Director of Social Services, I'm required to prepare an annual report that reflects on social care activity and performance for the preceding year. The report as presented today reflects activity for the financial year 2023 to 24. This is the 7th report submitted within the existing framework, and just as an aside, the guidance and framework for completion will change and be reflected on in future annual reports. The report provides a retrospective review of activity within 23-24, and hence some of the performance and activity will be outdated, but it informs continued service area priorities and developments. I do not intend to highlight any particular areas within the report, but generally would offer that social care services within the local authority continue to respond and flex the demands placed on all aspects of service provision. We've continued to deliver core services, and we've adhered to statutory functions. This has often required us to be innovative and responsive to changing needs against a continued backdrop of financial pressures. We've continued to provide services that support, safeguard and protect the vulnerable across the entire age range, and continue to develop services in order to build on strength-based practices to support individuals, families and communities. The report intentionally makes more than a cursory reference to the camp plan and the delivery programme, and I'd suggest that while the completion of this report fulfils a statutory function, the county plan and the delivery programme, which was presented prior to this item, provides more contemporary information on performance and presents as a live and active document in terms of development and direction of travel for the respective social care services within the Council. It will come as little surprise to members that the dominant activities for us within the Directorate continue to focus on demand management, both in a sense of preventing the need for statutory services and de-escalating services and packages of care where appropriate in order to enable individuals within all parts of the service to maintain levels of independence and to ensure that our resources are targeted effectively. The local authority's longer-term planning and adoption of the Marmot principles are crucial to our ongoing work within social care, where we aim to challenge all aspects of inequity, and this will continually be reflected in the planning and development of our preventative activity in the coming years. Going forward, of course, the financial situation will continue to be challenging, and we recognise that we continue to need to develop services to be both efficient and effective by engaging across all service areas within the local authority, developing community resilience and monopolising on strengths and developing on building existing partnerships. Thank you, Presiding Member.
Thank you, Jason. Any comments or questions to Jason? Councillor David Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. What percentage of the budget is allocated directly to services that impact residents, and how are efficiency savings being identified and implemented?
In terms of the first question, Councillor Thomas, I'm not sure I could give a definitive figure there in terms of the percentage that actually impacts upon residents. I guess my anticipation would be that every bit of finance that comes into, every bit of financial resource that comes into the service does have an impact, if that's through employing a member of staff or through the actual services we deliver. Pretty much every penny that comes in should be aimed at having an impact upon services. Sorry, Councillor, could you repeat the second part of the question?
Yeah. How are efficiency savings being identified and implemented?
So in terms of how they're being identified and implemented, obviously working at where our demand is within the service areas. We're looking at developing our community approach, community strategy, to ensure or to build upon community resilience. I think, as I've alluded to, that there's great demand within the system that we feel if we can shift that demand, there's a greater level of community resilience that we can build up so as to de-escalate demand within the system. Our focus will always continue to be improving and developing independence for individuals, so that they only come into the system as and when required, when needs really meet that. So in terms of efficiencies, it's about ensuring that we've got the right level of need and the right level of service that we're providing, and a lot of that work is being taken place at the moment.
Can I just quickly come back, Madam Presiding Member, if that's okay? So could you just try to explain what kind of steps are being taken to empower families and reduce resilience on state intervention?
So to empower families, some of the steps that we're taking there are focused upon strengths that exist within families. And I think I mentioned in the report, there's a great deal of focus and emphasis for us upon having a strengths-based approach rather than focusing upon risks. Whilst we need to acknowledge risks, of course, there's a greater focus, and we've had a developing focus over the last couple of years of looking at where strengths exist and how we can monopolise those strengths, both within individual families and again within communities, so that we're shifting that balance a little where we're trying to ensure that there's less dependence upon statutory services, and that we almost shift that demarcation line to community resilience and community focused services.
Councillor David Williams.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. Yeah, I think it's very helpful to see the overview in the report, but I think there's a couple of things that struck me with things going in the right way, as it were. One was the sort of percentage of reviews completed in the year, which has gone up from 44% to 87%. So obviously that would suggest we're targeting and being able to address things more readily. And similarly, again, I think taking forward the approach that you've identified is the sort of numbers of packages of reablement completed in the year, which have mitigated the need for support. Obviously, that's been a part of the direction of travel as you've outlined. So it does feel like the data is backing up the way that we're going with this community approach, reablement approach, and strengths-based approach. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor David Thomas, you have another question?
Yes, thanks, Madam Presiding Members. I just got two more, if that's okay. What safeguardings exist to prevent unnecessary out-of-county placements, and how are families involved in the decision-making process?
Are you, Councillor Thomas, are you referencing in terms of children's services or adult services, or both?
Both.
Okay. So in terms of children's services and preventing out-of-county placements, the vast majority of our children are placed within county. We know that we have particular issues with some of our children with more complex needs and having to place out of county, particularly for those requiring residential provision. Where we do that, we ensure that the provision as best can meet their needs. We've got a number of checks and balances that we do with that, ensuring that the provision is framework on a framework, and that is, providing the services we would want it to. Of course, you'll also be aware, Councillor Thomas, what we're looking to do, and increasingly more so within the next couple of years, is develop our own provision in-house. It was mentioned within the leader's presentation earlier around the development of Green Hill Bungalow, and that's very much a strategy for us of developing and bringing those high-cost services for complex needs children in-house, and that's a clear area of travel for us. In terms of adult services, again, similar focus there for us is around maintaining provision and placements in-house, and we would be doing that as we would be doing within with the children's services side, based upon individual needs of our service users as well.
Councillor Jane Watkins.
Thank you. It gives some detail in the report about the disabled facility grants, which unfortunately some of them are taking quite a long time to get assessed and completed. It does say that it continues to be a concern, and it also makes mention of the capacity within the occupational therapy team. I wonder if you could give us some more information about how you're going to address the processes with this system.
I can come in there, Councillor Watkins, as that one forms part of the adults and communities area. We're doing some work with health at the minute around the occupational therapy recruitment processes, which is something that we're focused on. Ultimately, it's a journey and a pathway with any of the associated health professions, so we need to make sure that we get all of the parts of that journey right, whether that's a reablement practitioner, an occupational therapy assistant, an OT, or a hospital-based OT as well. So we need to link up the training pathway, because that will then help with recruitment challenges within that area. But I'm pleased to say that actually our programme of disability facilities grants is moving forward at pace. This year, we're at the point of having spent the budget allocation for DFGs and moving those forward. That obviously means that we're moving those forward quickly. That means the spend is going out the door appropriately on those programmes. So within this financial year, we've tightened up on some of those processes to make sure that that money goes through the system as efficiently as possible. The report here reflects on 23-24, so it will take us back, what's that, a good 9 months or so. So I'm confident that's going in the right direction. We just need to make sure that we get the proper recruitment and training into the OT service now to make sure we sustain that.
Councillor David Thomas, did you have a further question, or is that completed?
No, I think I'll give Jason a rest now, thank you.
Councillor Lucy Williams.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. This is just a specific question relating to referrals to adult services, which is on page 8. I acknowledge it's a tricky ongoing situation where it was saying that there's still a significant amount of demand placed within the service area that does not lead to any substantial service. So it gives the example that of all the over, nearly 2,000 assessments with only 15% resulting in a care and support plan. I know that's an ongoing situation. I just wondered if there'd been any work done on trying to identify particularly where that demand comes from, and if there's any training that is going to be put in place to reduce the amount of work that goes on and making sure that assessments actually do result in care provision that's needed.
Again, if it relates to adults, I can come in there, Councillor Williams. Yes, so the assessments that are undertaken are part of that proportionate assessment process. So that assessment process will identify needs before formal structured service-based care and support, which is why you'll see a high proportion of assessments, but not all of it progressing into the formal care and support sector. The numbers and the volume that we expect to come through vary depending on what route we're getting those through. So if we're getting a lot of assessments that are coming from a hospital discharge route, the proportion of those that we would expect to see going into structured care and support services is going to be higher because we're working with people who are at the more complex end of that spectrum. Likewise, when we're doing more of the work from communities, we would expect to see a higher proportion receiving preventative support within the community. So that was the basis for the redesign that we undertook in 23-24. We're continuing to monitor that and track to see whether demand is going against those two areas. That is what we're anticipating, and that is what we're seeing at the minute. So we're seeing a higher proportion now of those going straight into the care and support coming from the hospital discharge route, as opposed to through the community route. So broadly, it's tracking where we'd expect the demand to be presented in the system. Our job now is for that the people who can receive the right type of support within their community. How can we make sure that we've got that community support offer in place?
Thank you.
Again, what we also have a very similar position as well, Councillor Williams. I mean, children's services, in terms of the volume of demand that comes through the door, that yields very little in terms of the support that's required. We're doing a lot of work with partner agencies on there because a lot of the referrals that come through the door, a lot of the contacts that come through our door are professional referrals. So we're doing a lot of work with partner agencies around threshold of need and service expectation. And of course, we're reviewing that community office so that there's another gateway or another pathway that professionals can refer to rather than using social care as a default position.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can I just take a chair's privilege? A few years ago, we had an excellent project with the Frailty Project, and we had Professor Bolbomic presenting the detox. And I wondered whether or not we could relook at what we did. We were leading the country in prevention of delayed transfers of care in DFGs. So we did a huge programme, and that resulted in the Frailty Project that we may like to have another look at to see where we were doing things really good. Thank you. Any other questions? Dave Williams?
I've got a question. I don't think you saw my arm.
Just a moment, Councillor Dave Williams.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. It was really just to pass on two bits of feedback in relation to the report. One is I think it's very helpful that there's some pictures in there. A picture tells 1,000 words. It's good to see the activity that's taking place, and also to commend the inclusion of some of the feedback from people who've used the services. Again, it makes it real, so I would just feel that they're really helpful things to include.
Thank you. Councillor Stuart Ashley.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I was looking at a bit on carers, young carers and adult carers, and I was reflecting on the fact that obviously this report is last year's, but it's coming into the amount of work that's been done in the community on carer support. We just spoke about hospital discharge. A lot of the burden's been placed on carers because that's where they go, obviously being discharged from hospital out into the community. We've got a lot of groups being developed by Dave's team, and obviously social services not having to carry that burden because we haven't got the capacity. I'm just wondering what we're doing going forward, also with the enhanced carers allowance as well. How we're developing that, because that's between the 2 years, isn't it? With the new government putting the money up for carers, I wonder what's happening on that score, because that's something we can do at this level much better than they do at national level. They that between these two reports, I just wonder what your reflections are on that. I'd be interested in that.
Thank you, Councillor. I guess the quick answer for me in terms of the enhanced carer support allowances, there's a regional strategic carers board where we'll be looking and are looking at the opportunities that will exist through that. I think just to I think acknowledge that, as you said at the start, there is a lot of hard work and a lot of efforts, a lot of community-based provision for our carers services, and again that's what we would want to continue to promote, so that we're promoting our independence for carers and for people who require that level of care as well, but of course at the right level of support from within the local authority as well.
Are you liaising with the health authority and between you and David Leach about how that patchwork of provision gets some sort of semblance, because obviously there's a lot more demand than our carer service can cater for. Well, in terms of carer support and the cared for. The times I've been in hospital over the last couple of years, it's you know, I say that personally, but obviously you get a flavour of people being discharged. There's more demand than there is ways of meeting it. I've just wondered about that.
Again, I guess the quick answer to that is yes, we are liaising with health, with our colleagues in health, both again at a regional level through the Regional Carer Strategic Group, through the Regional Partnership Board as well, and locally. You know, there'll be on occasion almost daily liaisons, weekly liaisons with our colleagues in health, both looking at individual packages and a more strategic framework of support as well.
Have you any examples of this particular year where you've done innovation like that?
I will have, which I can provide to you, Councillor, certainly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dave Daniels.
This is an officer's report, but I don't mind coming on this because it's sort of semi-political, really. But I mean, on the support for carers point, I mean, you know, I have in the past raised the issue of respite care for carers, which is an issue not just in Torvine but across Gwent and elsewhere, really. And it's something I'm very happy to raise again because it is an ongoing issue. You know, we do need to, on a regular basis, recognise the huge, immense level of commitment and benefit that unpaid carers have for us as a council and for our community. So maintaining those carers and making sure they don't burn out is absolutely essential. So I'm very happy to kind of to push that through the RPB as a renewed focus going forward, if that answers your question, Stu.
Thank you, David. I respect that. It's also the staff working in the area, because they're obviously there's the obvious staff that do it as a job, and there's the staff that do it as part of their package. I mean, Dave Leach has got people working with him as well that doing it as part of the community offer, and I think it's quite impressive what's developing at the moment. But it's probably not, you know, we must reflect.
Ashley.
Yeah.
Councillor Nick Horler.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. Listening to Dave Daniels' comments just now, it's most welcoming to hear this. I'm currently dealing with a resident in my community that is having respite cares, and it's getting very fractious currently. And I don't know how long this person can continue within the environment that she's in because of the care that she's not getting for her respite. So anything that this council can do to help those residents of Torvine that have a situation of respite care is very welcoming to hear. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Horler. Councillor Stuart Evans.
Thank you, Chair. My question is, when we receive complaints, at one point there's disabled communication, but how quickly do we deal with the complaints to get a resolution?
Thank you, Councillor. I think that varies depending on the complexity of the complaint. What we try to do, obviously, is deal with them as quickly as we can. I know from, I think it was at last council when Chris Corton presented the complaints report here, there are a significant number of queries that come in that are dealt with immediately by our complaints department and that are dealt with by team managers. Again, there is a time frame for us. It would depend upon the stage of complaint, whether it's a stage 1 or a stage 2 level complaint. We deal with them as quickly as we possibly can. Sometimes there are delays. Where there are delays in dealing with any process of complaint, though, we make sure that we continue to maintain communication with the individual that we're involved with at that time, so that communication continues, and we make sure that we're letting them know what's happening and why there may be a delay. But like I say, more often than not, those delays are related to the complexity of the complaint.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, you know, I commend the work you do, but I just think, you know, we need to make sure that they're complaints. We need to deal with it as quickly as possible. You know, these are people's lives who are suffering, so thank you for that.
Councillor Evans, thank you. I don't see any further comments or questions. The recommendations start on page 302 of your agenda. Can I ask members whether they agree with the recommendations, please? Are there any members against the recommendations? Any members abstaining? That report is carried. Thank you very much. Takes us to agenda item 13, the Gwent Regional Partnership Board, or RPB. This is the annual report for 23-24. Starts on page 339 of your agenda. And Natasha Harris, Head of Regional Partnership Team, could you deliver this report for us, please? We got it?
Yes. Yeah, thank you, Presiding Member. Okay, so you've all received the, so good morning, you've all received the report, so you should have it in front of you. And this is the annual Regional Partnership Board report that we bring to you each year for comment, and so you can highlight any comments that you have, and it highlights the progress that we've made. So as you will be aware, we complete a population needs assessment, and the last one was done in 2021, which highlighted the health and social care needs of our population across Torfaen, but also the rest of the region. Subsequently, on the back of the population needs assessment, we developed an area plan, which is our action plan for the Regional Partnership Board, and that identifies the priorities that we need to take forward as an RPB to meet the needs of the population needs assessment. So we work in collaboration across Gwent with health, social care and our third sector partners, and we work on the priorities and report this progress against the priorities each year to the Regional Partnership Board across the 5 councils and also Welsh Government. Now, the area plan is a living document and it's reviewed quarterly through each of the 7 strategic partnerships that sit underneath the Regional Partnership Board. So this ensures we're always on top of the work and we can address any emerging themes or changing needs that are coming through. We also work very closely with colleagues in the Gwent Public Support Unit when we're developing this work. We do that alongside their wellbeing plans to ensure there's no duplication of efforts, and we're working together to sort of dovetail our report so that readers can cross-reference where needed work going on across the region. So the report has been developed on a regional footprint, and it highlights projects and work that has been taken forward across Newport, Torfaen, Caerphilly, Blaenau Gwent and Monmouthshire across various sort of priorities, sort of children and families, carers, health, housing and social care. We've got a new autism and neurodevelopmental strategic partnership taking forward priorities, and they work across the autism code of practice. We've got work being done on adult, for adults, and also cross-links across the dementia strategic partnership. So, as I say, this highlights all the priorities that we've made across those work streams. So I hope that's a really helpful introduction to the report, and I'm happy to take any questions that anybody's got.
Thank you, Natasha. Are there any questions from anyone? Councillor David Thomas, Councillor Sue Morgan and Councillor Fiona Cross to start.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. How does the Regional Partnership Board ensure that there's minimal duplication of services between health and social care providers?
Okay, so we have, as I say, under the Regional Partnership Board, we've got 7 strategic partnerships that work across different themes. Each of those that we monitor the area plan, so that helps us to sort of look at any duplication that is coming through the system. We also do lots of engagement with the community. So I'll give you an example. At the moment, we're working very hard. Well, for the last 2 years, we've been working across Gwent around the All Wales Dementia Care Action Plan. So we're looking at what dementia care looks like in each area, and we're listening to the stories from people living with dementia, their carers and families, but also from paid professionals working in that area to see what sort of support services is going on, and where there are duplication. We're sort of all working quite closely together to see if we can sort of iron out that and sort of prevent that happening. So there's, in a nutshell, there's lots of engagement going on, and we work very closely within each of the strategic partnerships and the subgroups under those. So for example, we've got task and finish groups to set up certain areas of work. So we just make sure that we're linking all the work, and we've almost got like a golden thread through all of the strategic partnerships as well, because we're very aware that just because somebody sits on the dementia strategic partnership, we need to have oversight of what's going on across carers as well. So there are lots of links and lots of partnership working going on.
Thank you. Sue Morgan. Sorry.
Thanks, Chair. It's only a quick point, really. I mean, it's difficult to say without, because it's obviously an abstract question and whatnot, but I mean, I want to push back a little bit on duplication, because I think in this particular area, I think there is an argument to say that plurality of service is also a good thing, because, for example, we've had various different carers services that have offered very different types of support for carers. And so some carers have gone to one route where they haven't gone to another because it just suits them better. Same for mental health, same for various different other kind of elements. So I don't think duplication is always a bad thing, particularly in social care and health, because it offers different perspectives and different offers for people. So I think that's my only pushback to that question, really.
Thank you. Councillor Sue Morgan.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. I'm interested in the reference to working with the business community at Para 6.1, and particularly the reference there to domiciliary care. Conscious from previous reports that a considerable amount of the adult social care budget is spent through third parties, and that the challenges of working with the privately provided dom care services are considerable. While you mention training and upskilling across health and social care, some of those disparities of terms and conditions and provisions sometimes present a barrier and can create a sense of second-class citizens amongst the dom care workforce. I'd be interested to know how, on a regional basis, we're looking at improving both the recognition of and the recruitment and retention of high-quality dom care workers.
I can come in certainly to discuss that one, Councillor Morgan. We did a significant amount of work last year around the redesign of our reablement service to make sure that there was one essentially dom care reablement offer that was being delivered in terms of that interface between health and social care. So to make it really, really clear that that was a function that sat within the social care part of the system. In terms of the spend then that goes out to the third parties and to third-party providers, we're working really closely to make sure we're delivering against the strategic ambitions that we have for where care and support should be prioritised. So whenever it comes to the fee-setting process, we look at where those needs and demands are on a local level, and the fees are set according to those principles. So if it is a case that we're looking to drive activity and support within the dom care sector, then that would be reflected in the way that those fees are structured. We obviously have to do that within the confines of very tight budgets, and those tight budgets will obviously remain, but that's how we use some of the levers that we have available to make sure that we're prioritising the right part of the system based on the need of the local area.
Thank you. I've got a number of speakers now. Councillor Fiona Cross, or did you want to come in to answer that?
Really sorry. Yeah, it was just to supplement that question, really, from a sort of political perspective, because there's some things Dave can't necessarily say. From my perspective, I've said it plenty here over time that pay. We need to pay carers more. We need to pay dom carers more. Obviously, this is a much bigger issue than Torfaen, much bigger issue than Wales. This is a UK-wide issue and therefore needs addressing on a UK-wide level. My party happens to be the same that is in the national and the UK level. That doesn't stop me from pushing as hard as I possibly can at every juncture to say, look, we need more investment in adult social care. And that is something I will do going forward, because it does seem to be that the taps are starting to be turned on, if slowly, but gradually. So hopefully, I will certainly be a voice for prioritising adult social care, because, yes, I mean, it's no surprise that this time of year we're competing with retailers for staff. They pay more in some cases than some of our dom care providers, and that's a terrible situation. And that really needs to be addressed in the long term. And I'm very frank about this, because there's no denying that there is a fundamental issue with adult social care across the country that needs to be addressed sooner or later. So from me, I will absolutely push, irrespective of political party or anything.
Thank you, Councillor.
Presiding member, can I just come back in quickly as well? Sorry, I should have also mentioned we've also got a regional provider forum that sits under the Regional Partnership Board and a commissioning group, and lots of these discussions happen quite frequently through that particular board. So it was just to raise that those discussions are happening.
Thank you. We were intending to go into a social services debate, but we'll continue with Councillor Stewart-Ashley.
I'm afraid
Apologies, Stewart. It's Councillor Fiona Cross first.
Let Fee go.
There you go. Now my card is on the machine. First of all, well said, Dave. I thought what you said there was really good. Natasha, lovely to see your face on the screen. One of my things when I was on the RPB from years ago was about neurodiversity, and I'm really pleased to see that there is quite a big chunk dedicated to neurodiversity. So, first of all, my congratulations. My second point then will sound really ungrateful, because I still feel there's so much more that we could do. So I'm really looking for reassurance that you're still aspiring and driving this particular space forward. I can see the fact that you've developed a space for people who are neurodivergent with different, not necessarily autism, being directed off into a different separate service, and that's ADHD. So that's really good to see that, and lots of other elements. And also I can see the list of third sector organisations that you've invested into. Brilliant. But there's so much more, and this is affecting so many people on a wide range, not just the individuals affected by the condition themselves, but by their families too. So yeah, it's grateful, but seemingly ungrateful.
That's no problem. Thanks, Councillor Cross. And just to reassure you that this is a huge priority for the Regional Partnership Board. We've now got a separate strategic partnership in their own right, which is the Autism and Neurodivergence Strategic Partnership. They oversee the Autism Code of Practice, and when the Neurodevelopmental Code of Practice comes through, that will also sit within their remit to sort of evaluate that for Gwent. So that will look at what we're offering in Gwent to people who are neurodivergent. Also, last month, we were invited by Welsh Government to a workshop where they're looking at the neurodevelopmental pathway across the whole of Wales. So this is a really priority area of work for us going forward. So there's lots going through that particular strategic partnership. And it's also really lovely because we've got people with lived experience that sit on that strategic partnership. So, they're really influencing the work that we're doing. So just some reassurance that, yes, there's lots of work being driven through that partnership at the moment.
Certainly, Councillor Cross.
Well, I'll reiterate it publicly, that you have an ally in this space here in Torfaen and myself. I am reassured, and I did note that, you'll have people with direct lived experience representing, so that's reassuring to hear as well.
Thank you very much. Councillor Stewart-Ashley.
Well, you've got the same here, because I got family people with experience of it, and being a carer as well, and said position. The problem was that I found out about this secondhand, and after a conference on it, because we would have participated had we known about it, which is the usual communications failure. So I had been involved in a lot of things in Torvine on said subject. So I'm following Fiona on this. Would have loved to get, or you know, both have got involved in it, because I've certainly been involved with a lot of autism, neurodivergence type activities over the years because of the acute nature of my particular family. But it's more than that, it's policy development. And it's good to hear you going forward on neurodivergence issues, because I sort of the last 10, 15 years have been involved with it. The thing is, getting it down to the grassroots in boroughs like ours is important. I know we've got the integrated autism service and things like that, but we need to be able to get people with the lived experience going up and yourselves and policy coming down. And that's frustration, I think, for a lot of people, parents and carers. I'm interested to hear what you say about that one.
Natasha, do you have any views on communication?
Yeah, just to reassure you, Councillor Ashley, excuse me, that the meeting that the Welsh Government put on, the workshop that was looking at the neurodivergence pathway, they only had set amount of people that could attend, so I don't think the invite was extended out, but I will bear you in mind. I've just written your name down, so if we do anything else, I'll make sure that we communicate that to you and both Councillor Cross to make sure that you're involved in that work.
Thank you very much indeed. My comment is, obviously we represent at this level, and obviously the inverted pyramids and all that sort of thing, but we can communicate out. And I can give you chapter and verse for the last 20 years on some of this. Is one of the reasons some of us got involved in politics.
Thank you, Councillor Ashley. I've got a final speaker, Councillor Dave Williams.
I think my colleague was before me, sorry.
Councillor David Thomas.
Thanks, Madam Presiding Member. Just two quick ones, if that's okay. How does the RPB's work support economic self-reliance among residents, reducing long-term dependency on services? And what initiatives encourage employment and training within health and care sectors?
Natasha, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, prevention is one of the key priorities for the Regional Partnership Board, and that's actually on the agenda for the first meeting that we've got in January now, to take a deeper dive into this and what we're offering in communities to help prevent people, you know, needing to go into statutory services in the first place. But there is lots of work going on in the report with carers, where we've got sort of carers hubs set up within hospitals across Gwent. We've got sort of, I think someone mentioned earlier, we've got the dementia hubs that are set up now within community spaces in the libraries, and we're working with lots of multi-agency partners to get that preventative message out there so that we can support people with brain health programmes and training. This will all be free to communities, and there'll be a big sort of launch of this in January. But wherever we can across the pockets of work that come under the priorities of the RPB, we are doing lots of work to try and help sort of the prevention space, if you like. Regarding the query around sort of training and workforce and that sort of thing, we've currently got a lot of work going on with the Workforce Board and the College Consortium. So that piece of work looks at sort of regional work placement schemes to support students who are doing health and social care courses, and that looks to sort of really sort of prepare them to get and sort of advocate the job, to get a job within health and social care. So we've been engaging with Coleg Gwent to promote the careers across health and social care in Torvine and across the whole of Gwent, to sort of promote the sector really, and that includes sort of clinical placements within hospitals, but also social care placements and access to medicine courses. So there's lots and lots of sort of promotion going on to sort of try and get people into those roles. Have I answered the question, Councillor, or did you need me to adapt on any of that?
No, that's fine, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Final question, Councillor David Williams.
Thank you very much, Madam Presiding Member, and I think perhaps the points I might pick up might actually address some of the things that other colleagues have raised. I would draw your attention to page 360 of the report, because one of the things that has been gone forward, and I think it's been a very strong initiative, is around microcare, which is again sort of supporting those people to be self-employed. I know it started in Monmouthshire. I know you've indicated there's now a community of practice. So I think this is something definitely that's worth expanding and continuing with. And I would declare interest simply in terms of, you know, I drew on that service myself to support my father, to perhaps somebody to come in to provide some support. So I would commend that sort of approach. The second thing I'd want to highlight is, as you've mentioned, the access to medicine course. Again, I'm conscious of a lot of background work that's been done to develop that kind of pathway and connection, so that's really important. And I think it's really important as well to see how innovative the ERPB has been in terms of this being the first within Wales. The final point I'd want to make here is, which is on page 354, and I commend this to all members, which is actually then the co-production luncheons that have taken place, open to all citizens within Gwent. If you haven't been, it's an opportunity if you want to actually have some of that direct engagement with people working in health and social care as part of a very well-established citizens network, citizens panel that has gone forward, where a lot of very active citizens are not backwards in coming forwards in saying exactly what their experience has been around health and social care. So I would highlight those points to members as things that perhaps one could individually follow up on. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Williams. That was the final questions. Councillor Evans, one more. Councillor Evans.
Yeah, it's vitally important with the core themes and everything, with our own objectives for the county plan. So, you know, we need to be mindful that whatever comes from bureaucracy gets to the community, and the community needs to be able to be involved, which has been discussed with others. So is there any comment that, you know, could we do it better? Could we do it quicker?
In terms of community involvement, Councillor, on each of the strategic boards that sit underneath the Regional Partnership Board, there's at least a community representative on this. So on the carers board, for example, there are people who have experiences of being carers or being cared for. So we get that community voice there so that we're able to basically develop the services through the Regional Partnership Board upon what the service user is telling us.
Because I previously sat on it for a while. So.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Councillor David Daniels to sum it up now, please.
Thank you. Appreciate the comment, Amy. Just a quick answer. Yes, that can be done better, Steve, and it's something I'm passionate about myself, actually. Just quickly, just to offer members, I'd quite like to offer a seminar on the RPB, because I don't know how many of you...
Oh, that's the question.
I don't know how many of you are, you know, have that background on the RPB. I think I've said before, when I joined the RPB, I didn't have that background of understanding, and then I was on the RPB. Shouldn't be like that. So I've talked to Natasha already, so she's, I don't know about happy, but she'll take on the work. Yeah, we'll have a seminar next year if everyone's happy with that.
Thank you very much. Can I take members to the recommendations, which start on page 343 of the report? Can I ask members whether they agree with these recommendations, please? Are there any members against those recommendations? Any abstentions? That report is carried. Could I thank officers and Natasha Harris for the response to the report, and have a very good Christmas. Agenda item 14, amendment to the Constitution, licensing matters, page 401. Claire Lacey, Principal Solicitor, could you deliver this report, please?
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. Hopefully this one will be a little less exciting for you. The report is to propose amendments to the Constitution with regard to licensing matters, and the proposals are to make it easier to understand the functions of the two licensing committees. There's no changes which are proposed to the actual functions of either committee. The report has been presented to both the Statutory Licensing Committee and the General Licensing Committee, and proposes changes to Part 7 and I apologise to all of you because, unfortunately, the tracking that was referred to in the report does not show up in your pack. But the report indicates that there are amendments to paragraphs 7.3.2 and 7.3.3. It should also have reflected that there are changes to 7.3.1. The changes which have been set out in there are to clarify the functions of the two committees. There are also proposed changes to Appendix 10, and these are primarily to the layout of the document. They also reflect changes to staff structure and to the examples of what the General Licensing Committee covers. Thank you, Presiding Officer. I'll hand back to you for the recommendations and for any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Councillor David Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. What cost-saving measures have been introduced as part of the revised framework? And I'll just give you my second question to save time. And how does the Council balance public safety and economic growth in its licensing policies?
I don't know if I can answer either of those questions, I'm afraid. The only task that I was given was to look at the constitution itself, as opposed to the functioning of the licensing committees themselves.
Thank you, Claire. Thank you.
Can that be sent to me,
I'm sure officers could deal with your questions outside of this meeting. Thank you. The recommendations, no further comments or questions. The recommendations start on page 403 of the report. And as Claire has already explained, can I ask members whether they agree with the recommendations? Ask if anybody's against the recommendations and any abstentions. That report is carried. Thank you, Claire. Takes us to agenda item 15, the update to the political balance, committee chairs and membership of committees. This starts on page 419 of your agenda. Jason Lewis, Director of Corporate Services and Head of Democratic Services. Can you deliver this report for us, please?
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. Good morning, members. This report asks you for approval to the revised political balance calculations that have been necessary following the resignation of Councillor Sue Malson. The revised calculations are described in Appendix A. The revised calculations have no impact on the scrutiny chair allocations. Members are also asked to note the temporary vacant seats on the committees affected by these changes, and these are shown in Appendix B. Following the outcome of a by-election in the Trefethin and Penyground ward, political balance will be recalculated and committee seats allocated accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. I don't think there's any need for comments. The recommendations start on page 420 of the report. Can I ask members whether they agree with the recommendations, please? Anyone against the recommendations? Any abstentions? Thank you. That report is carried. Takes us to agenda item number 16, which is motions on notice. There are no motions on notice, so we'll move on to 17, members' question time. There are 6 questions today, and we'll refer to the sheet. Councillor Janet Jones has the first 2 questions, but in her absence, she's trying to get back, but obviously hasn't made it. Councillor Nick Haller will ask Councillor Janet Jones' question.
Sorry, apologies, Madam.
Sorry.
Councillor Jones
Janet,
joined
you're
us
on
online.
screen, are you? I can't see it. There
I
we
just
are.
managed to come
Well
in.
done.
Thanks, Chair. I just managed to come in, so I haven't got a copy of the questions with me, so I would appreciate if you'd allow Nick to do them for me.
Right, fine. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. I share Councillor Janet's views. So the first question that Janet is going to ask, the cost to collect 3 large items by our teams is £29. However, some residents, especially those on low incomes, say that these costs are unaffordable. What action can we, as authority, take in order to help those residents to ensure that this does not result in fly tipping and marring our country? And I'll give you 3 examples. Over Black Friday, I had to report 3 fridges in one street. that were just dumped on the street. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Morgan.
Thank you, Councillor Hawler and Councillor Jones for the question. Just to set the context for my response, wherever possible, we want to encourage residents to recycle or reuse bulky goods, such as furniture. And I would say we are blessed in Torfaen with charities such as Circulate Furniture Recycling, who will remove that type of material for free. And there are, of course, other companies operating in Torfaen that specialise in some kinds of waste removal, especially if the material carries a scrap value. And depending on those items, residents may wish to take that option. And of course, residents can take items to the Household Recycling Centre in New Inn, though I appreciate that's not always possible. The council service can take up to 8 times per visit, though, if that's not possible, and accepts items such as washing machines and fridge freezers. With regard to the costs, arrangements for collection of bulky waste from residential properties varies from council to council, and in Torfaen our charges are in line with other councils across the region. It's important to note the council hasn't increased the cost of the service since 2019, and this service already operates at a loss. I accept that for various reasons taking items to the Household Waste Recycling Centre can be difficult, and I share both of yours concern for those who face real financial challenges and who don't have access to a vehicle. But I would say this council repeatedly demonstrates its commitment to ensure that those who face genuine challenges and financial hardships receive the greatest levels of support. So if fly tipping is sometimes, and sadly, a response to financial hardship, our efforts to support families with the cost of living crisis in all aspects of the council's activities will all help. But it is worth noting that often more rural areas at the margins of the borough are targeted by fly tippers from outside of the area, which I'm sure you've seen. It's important to remember, as my colleague Councillor Owen has recently stressed, that fly tipping is both illegal and antisocial. It damages our precious natural environment and it puts other people at risk. I would urge all members and residents to help our officers identify and prosecute fly tippers, while we continue to support each other to reuse, recycle and manage bulky items and other recyclates in the interest of our communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask you to ask Councillor Jones's second question, please?
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. Councillor Janet Smith's question is, the Arthur Jenkins home is now under ownership of Spectrum Care Provider, and we thank our officers for their support. However, can you advise how long the support within the home will continue, and is it now, as it's now going forward time, to have a better coordinated working partnership?
Mr. Daniels.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks for the question, Councillor Jones and Hawler. Before I give my substantive answer, I'd also like to thank our Torfaen team for working tirelessly to facilitate this transfer. Members can easily have guessed from the varying nature of the questions that we've been asking and answering over the past few months that this process has been challenging, to say the least, with time just being the crucial factor throughout. Throughout, our officers have always had residents' best interests at core and have worked both rapidly and diligently to get this across the line, whilst always safeguarding residents. So to them I say thank you. The transitional arrangements of Arthur Jenkins Care Home have been complex in nature due to multiple processes involved in supporting and agreeing the transitional arrangements. I'm aware that the new provider took occupation of the building last week, and I look forward to seeing them implement their plans for a more sustainable mix of nursing and residential provision in the building in the coming months and years. Officers from the Council have already visited Arthur Jenkins several times over the last week to offer support and ensure that robust systems and processes are embedded in the home. This level of support will continue for as long as is needed to ensure that the service provided is safe and of good quality. We're confident that the provider understands the need to work collaboratively with ourselves to deliver the best possible services and outcomes. Thank you.
Thank you. Question 3 is Councillor Jane Watkins.
Thank you. I've recently signposted residents to the Torfaen Business Direct service. I'm going to ask if the relevant executive member can describe what support is available for new business startups.
John Gordon.
Thank you, Presiding Member, and thank you, Councillor Watkins. I'm happy to explain how the service works for a new startup business looking for support. So we launched the Torfaen Business Direct service in March 2023, and that was in response to the need for a one-stop shop in the Torfaen business community. The business engagement team manage the service, and they offer a single point of contact for access to all council services, with support to both launch and thrive long-term. Every business is unique with its own individual needs, so each response is personalised to the business need. The business engagement team offer a comprehensive range of services for startups, including information on licensing requirements and hygiene ratings, assistance with planning applications and finding premises, details on current grants and funded training courses, commercial waste collection and networking opportunities. The service is made possible through collaboration with departments across the authority, ensuring that information is up to date and readily available. Thanks to UK Government SPF funding, the team have recently been able to deliver a variety of training and support activities. We worked with Welsh ICE to deliver a course which included key topics including idea generation, branding and marketing, social media strategies and websites, sales and finance, funding and legal aspects, business organisation and business model canvas. I attended the celebration event at the end of the course where attendees pitched their businesses to local business leaders. This was like a dragon-style event where they had constructive feedback for the attendees to consider. All attendees were considered to receive support from the business engagement team, including access to further training, business support and funding opportunities. Given the success of this course, we will run a second course starting in mid-January. In January 25, the business engagement team in partnership with Torfaen Business Voice will launch Torfaen Business Voice Academy. This is a mentorship programme which will support pre-startups, young entrepreneurs and newly established businesses. Academy members will receive a fully funded 12-month membership to the Torfaen Business Voice, personalised mentorship through the newly launched Spring Online initiative, and the opportunity to attend all 4 networking events per year to connect with their peers, their mentors and other entrepreneurs. So the business engagement team is dedicated to building long-term relationships with the businesses they work with and also encouraging the businesses to return for any support they need throughout their journey so they can grow and they can succeed. And finally, thank you for signposting your resident to Torfaen Business Direct, and we wish them every success in their venture.
Thank you, Councillor Gordon.
And thank you for that very thorough answer. I know that a number of the residences that did continue with the advice they got were very pleased with it, and they're very happy setting up businesses. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Watkins. Councillor Nick Hall, a question 4.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. At September's full council, I asked about the disposal of recycling bins. Some residents no longer need them, are not able to make the journey to New Inn, with one of the main reasons due to the lack of transport and funds to get there. I believe that we are now seeing more unwanted recycling bins, some which are damaged, that will be left in our communities, which in turn means that TBC are having to pick them up. Could it be the case that residents do not want unnecessary clutter within their properties whilst they wait for national wastage? When they still have to dispose of this, simply can't find a way that TBC can help them to achieve getting rid of the property apart from visiting New Inn. These recycling stations are being funded by TBC and the boxes are being left around our streets is now sadly what we're seeing. My question, I ask that now that the red bags have been distributed, some form of collection is achieved for those unwanted recycling actions and an action plan put in place to collect the spare bins from the curbside so that the unrecyclable hard plastic is disposed of in a proper manner and not, in some cases, blighting our communities and our landscapes. Thank you.
Councillor Morgan.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Haller. Firstly, can I stress that while the red bag has been introduced to enable quicker and easier collections of those materials that can be sorted at the Council's processing facility, namely plastics, tins and cartons, residents do still need their black boxes for glass and paper, as well as for any bagged and labelled textiles and batteries. We know and are very grateful for the fact that many people are becoming more active in recycling everything they can, and so black box volumes are still expected to rise. So keeping hold of the spare is a good plan for times of the year when we produce extra recycling, such as Christmas. And it shouldn't need more floor space to do this, as the black recycling boxes are very easily stacked. If residents are sure that they have more black boxes than they need, they can either redistribute them to friends and family or take them to the household recycling centre in New Inn. So given the ongoing requirement for black boxes, there are no plans to arrange a special collection at this time. However, we will keep this under review. I also want to take this opportunity to thank our crews for their hard work during the exceptionally challenging circumstances of 2 successive named storms. And I think that's a sobering reminder of the very real climate and nature emergency we're all living through, and why our efforts to reduce waste and emissions in all possible ways really matters. Finally, could I remind members that this more streamlined approach that we're taking to waste and recycling is leading to fewer passes by vehicles. So the impact on our roads and air quality and the frustrations of occasionally being stuck behind the bin lorry are being tackled alongside improved recycling. Thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Sorry, could I just come back on that one? Whilst I do agree with your comments, there are still people within communities that don't have access to New Inn to get their waste. They don't have the space within their properties to store the extra bins. I fully understand stacking bins are accessible, but people do not have that space, and there are people within the community in the north of the borough that I represent are just leaving them on the curbside for somebody else to pick them up. Surely, in good faith, Torvine should be looking at a way of disposing the property that did belong to them originally in an appropriate manner. Thank you.
Did you have anything to add to your answer, Councillor Morgan?
No, sorry, just to refer to the previous answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Question 5, Councillor Nick Hall.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. As an independent ward member representing Blenavon, we are very pleased that Arthur Jenkins Home has a new care provider called Spectrum. After the 3 months of challenging conversations with all that have been involved in the transfer, our community is very happy that the transfer has now taken place and the home is being saved. I would like to ask what could be done better to achieve an easier transaction for all those involved, and would like some pre-warning of providers to say that the notice period has held. To ease the notice period, the 90 days notice period.
Okay, Councillor David Daniels.
Thanks, Councillor Horan. Thanks, Chair. I appreciate this has been an extremely testing time for all concerned, and at this point officers are still finalising the transfer and making sure that the service is provided effectively and the providers themselves settle into the scheme. We've discussed at previous council meetings some of those challenging discussions we've had with the previous provider. Because of this, in the new year, officers are keen to work with the previous provider on a lessons learned session and will, of course, consider whether any lessons could then be applied to our relationship with other providers in the borough.
Thank you, Madam President. Could you just come back, please? Thank you. Your remarks are most welcome. But on a personal note, myself and Janet Jones would like to wish all the staff at Arthur Jenkins who lost their jobs over this transition well in finding new employment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Horner. Councillor David Thomas, final question 6, please.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. In the last 2 full council meetings, I have raised concerns about the need for clear transparency, fairness and equality between Cumbrian High School and Crossy Killyard High School. My focus is not on building a brand new school, but on ensuring greater investment in facilities and classrooms at Cumbrian High. Will the Executive Member for Education commit today to demonstrating this Council's willingness to invest by providing Cumbrian High with a 3G pitch, as every other secondary school in this borough has. If this council is truly serious about education, the funding should reflect that commitment, and that's not a cute turn of phrase for the Chamber, Councillor Clark. I am very passionate about getting Cumbrae High what it deserves.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas.
Yeah,
Councillor Richard Clark.
Sorry, thanks, Councillor Thomas. Your passion has been evident in your series of questions, and in response to those questions, I think I've said to you that I believe there genuinely is fairness in how schools are treated. Unlike your question, I have to assure that this is across all schools and not just two named schools. You previously even have been advised of the investment in Cumbrae High School and offer future commitments to wider school estate, including Cumbrae High School, have been outlined in an earlier report which indeed you supported. Again, I repeat that the Council remains, to use your words, serious about education, and I believe the 121 million reflected in that previous report illustrates this, as I said earlier, and we continue to provide amongst the highest level of funding to schools across Wales. Actually, we're 6 out of the 22 authorities providing funding for our schools. Such funding is distributed using a formula to ensure all schools are funded consistently. However, specifically in relation to the 3G pitch, I am happy to say this is already in hand even, and officers are in discussion with various funding bodies and the opportunity of applying for grants next year to progress the conversion even of the Top Redcar to a 3G pitch. As and when application windows open, this funding will be applied for.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Takes us to agenda item 18, which is the Cabinet decisions of the 3rd of December 24. Cabinet decisions start on page 427 of your agenda and are for the Council to note. There are no challenges to any of the decisions. Any members wishing to speak on the Cabinet? No? Can I ask the question then, if members agree with the recommendations to note the Cabinet minutes? Are there any members against those recommendations? Any abstentions? Cabinet minutes are noted. Thank you very much. Takes us to the final agenda item, which is the date and time of the next meeting. Thank you to all those members who have managed to keep their cameras on this morning. And for your information, members, the next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, the 21st of January 2024 at 10 a.m. Can I thank members and end the meeting with a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to all. Thank you.
And the same to you, Madam.